There's an area that's just like New Orleans. As a matter of fact, most of America call it ground zero for the climate crisis.
Reverend Lennox Yearwood Jr. is talking about Hampton Roads. That's why Yearwood, who goes by the name Rev, recently brought his talented group of performers and dedicated community organizers to Norfolk to perform their show, Ain't Your Mama's Heatwave, at the Addicts Theater.
And hopefully one day we will say that we are fossil-free at last. Fossil-free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are fossil-free at last.
If a Category 1 even, a storm hits this area, it could have double the impact of what Hurricane Katrina did to New Orleans. Not only is it dealing with the crisis because of the sea level rise, but also because Norfolk itself is actually sinking. So you had this double crisis that was happening. And also because you had the same economic disparities, the same kind of housing complex that are close to downtown, like the North Ward was for the French Quarter. You had that with St. Paul's area. So you have this almost the exact same situation in a very eerie way. And even worse, because at least in some cases in New Orleans, there was more ways to get in and get out. In some cases in Norfolk, there's only one way in and one way out.
Yearwood, a Louisiana native, is also the president and CEO of the Hip Hop Caucus, a nonpartisan organization that encourages young people to participate in elections, policymaking, and community service. Rev says, according to the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, we've got a little over a decade to make changes in regards to the climate crisis. He's so concerned about the timeline that he's championing the cause by trying to get as much information as possible into the hands of those he feels need it the most. And he's bringing it through entertainment and one-on-one conversations.
The flooding will continue, the wildfires will continue, the droughts will continue. All of those things that are hitting particularly vulnerable communities and communities of color first and worst, those things will continue and grow to the point that we won't be able to change it unless we transition from fossil fuels to clean energy.
Terrence Muhammad, who goes by the name TC, is one of the community organizers on the ground helping to spread the word. But he says what's even more important is listening.
When you talk about climate change, you're talking about housing and where will people live in these crises. You know, when people are talking about there's a hurricane coming, you need to leave, you need to evacuate. The hurricane's coming on Wednesday. Well, I don't get my check until Friday. How can I evacuate? How can the churches that are a pillar in the black community be utilized as places to help give resources, to help move people when these things happen? So part of the organizing is giving the story to them, but also hearing the stories of the people that are marginalizing vulnerable communities that sometimes don't have a platform to speak.
In addition to getting out into the community, Yearwood and others who make up the cast of Ain't Your Mama's Heatwave use cultural expressions and political experiences, music and comedy to bring people together and start a dialogue about the toll sea level rise is taking on our communities. Rev says their goal is to generate impactful conversation, not just in Norfolk, but for the entire country.
We want to make sure that people know that this is the human issue with a standpoint that, listen, let's deal with the facts. Climate crisis is real, and we must now educate and energize people to deal with that fact. Let's laugh a little bit, but then use that laughter, use that fun, as we do in our community, to make sure we go out there and make change happen.
For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.